Hi guys, in this lecture we are going to be covering the date object, and dates are actually very important. If you see any of the web pages, you'll have a create date or update date, or you would also have, if you see your social media like Twitter, Facebook, every time will have date which is like posted just now or 5 minutes ago, 1 hour ago. It's all controlled by the date object. So date objects are very important for any application. The date object lets you work with dates like years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, and of course to the extent of a millisecond. It's very easy to actually use the date. So let's go on to our example where we will just have date fields created in a paragraph, and we'll just write some JavaScript that will update the inner HTML with the date object. So let's say date document.get element by ID. Let's pass in the date field. Let's update the inner HTML is equals to something. Now let's directly do it. Let's go new date, and that's all you need to do, and it will display the date. And as you can see, the format, it's on the screen. It's Monday, December 5th, 2016 at 3 o'clock. It's GMT 500 and it's EST, which is Eastern. Now that's the current time on my browser right now. In your browser, it might be different. There is another way of displaying dates, which is in milliseconds. So what happens is the dates are also written in numbers, which is if you go to currentmillis.com as an example, you can see that the moment you put in a date out here, it will give you the output in a millisecond. These milliseconds are computed from 1st of January. You can see this, 1st of January 1970. And for Apple users, or probably even Android, when you might have not used your phone for a long time, you might have seen it reset to a previous date, and this date was January 1, 1970. So if you just update your dates to the current date, and your phone starts working again. That's the beauty of JavaScript. Let's go and see how we can use this milliseconds to actually create a date, which is 10th of December. Let's go here. Instead of just date, I will pass in the milliseconds we have, and instead of field, it should say field 1. So that way it's December 10th, and that's how you can create date using milliseconds. There are two other ways of creating a new date. Let me show you those as well. So you definitely want to create a date which is of the format, let's say mmddyy. So let's say it's month is 12, date is 5, and the year is 2016. Let's update it as field 2, and the answer would be 5th. Let's update this to 31st, and let's see what day it is. Oh, Saturday, which means it is a Saturday and 31st December. All the more reason to party. I hope you're partying. If not, we will study JavaScript together. Let's do field 3. And let's have another format. So what is the other format that we can use to create a date? Well, it takes in an input which is of the format years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds. And again, the last 4 are optional, so you can give in anything that you want. If you just give these 3, it should still work. So let's try and give 2016. And again, 31st December turns out to be my favorite. The moment you give 2016, field 3, okay. 2016, the month we will give it as 11, and the day we will give it as 31st. Let's give some commas out here because it's comma separated. Okay, so you can see that 2016, Saturday, December 31st. And that got displayed. If I add in an hours, let's say it is 12, it will give me 12 hours. If I add in a minutes, let's say 30 minutes, it will give me 12:30. So that's how you can use these 4 formats to actually create a date object. You might have noticed that for December, I gave in a number 11. Well, I'll tell you the reasoning for it. Because JavaScript treats months just like it treats arrays. So if you have an array, you start from 0 to something. Similarly, for dates, you start from 0, which is January is 0. And the month December becomes 11. So be careful when you assign dates in this particular format. When a date object is created, a number of methods allow you to operate on it. Date methods allow you to get the year, month, day, hour, minute, second, and millisecond of the objects using either local time or UTC, which is the universal or GMT time. Now, we will cover date methods in a later chapter, but let's quickly go on to the display of our dates. You can see that the way it gets displayed, it's very tacky. So what is a better way to display the dates? Let's use this example and put it onto our field 4. Anyways, that p tag is sitting idle. And rather than creating it like this, let's just put it into a variable. So variable d is equals to something, and let's assign this variable d to the date. So everything works fine. Now, the moment I do this new date, the date instance is created, which means the moment I do a date equals d, it means that the current date is initialized. It is at 15/06/115. You cannot have the date continuously incrementing. Once you initialize it, it can be outputted as a string at any time. This date will not change. And if you just refresh your page or probably run this again, the date will get updated. Now, what does this mean? This means that by default, this date object is converted to a string, which means this is as good as saying toString of this object, and it'll still give you the same answer. Just like toString, there are other methods that we can use, which is toUTCString. It will just give me the GMT format. We also have something called as toDateString. It will just give me the day and the date. You can also specify the time zone in which you want the date to be displayed in. Like for me, by default, it displays the EST, because if you don't specify a format, it takes the default format of the browser, which means the time zone in which your browser is. So that was all about dates. Make sure you practice a little bit on how to create and how to format it. We will cover dates a little more in the next coming chapters as well.